Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. Another chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at Just Saying No GWJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to follow us on Spotify and get us in your ears at Just Saying Football. Week 18 is here. It was a tough start to 2024 for you and I with our teams. And just to let everybody know, the way we're going to break down this episode is basically we're going to do meh and games of the week. All the meh games are the games that are pretty much meaningless for teams or have minimal impact, like the Vikings game. Our games of the week are going to be everything that has playoff implications. So that's how this is going to be broken down. Do you have anything to say to the people before we get into this?
No, I'm excited. Right now, I know my team's out, but I know a lot of teams, like you said, are gunning for it. Half of this week, like you said, is really just about some teams kind of either like low key tanking or some teams just really trying to like establish playoff positions. So, expect some teams to sit some starters and some people to kind of start their starters. Gonna be a very interesting week.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's kick it right off because we have an NFC West showdown when the Seattle Seahawks make their way to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Arizona's favored in this one, but Seattle's favored in this one by -2.5. Over under here of 47.5. What are your thoughts going into this one? Seahawks not only need a win, but they need a few teams to lose as well for them to make the playoffs.
Yeah, and they have made the playoffs the last couple of years, and especially kind of with the bounce back with Geno Smith. Seattle fans are definitely expecting them to take down Arizona. I agree. I think that like you said, all the implications that'll come from them, it just starts with a win. We saw a lot of teams get in like that last week, so I'm expecting Seattle to win on the road against a divisional opponent. Huge shout out to the Cardinals for beating Philly last week, but I don't know if they get that lucky again. I'm expecting a big game out of DK Metcalf for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Huge performance from James Conner last week as well. Will be very hard to recreate all of that magic a second time. Should definitely be a shootout of a game. I'll happily take the over on 47.5, believe it or not, on this one. But I'm going Seattle all the way. I just don't think it's going to go very well for Arizona. That being said, Kyler Murray will be sticking around for 2024. The head coach has come out Gannon has. So moving this right along, we have an AFC North battle when the Pittsburgh Steelers make their way to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Steelers are favored in this one -4 over on here of 35.5, and it's mainly because so many people are going to be sitting out for the Ravens, guys like OBJ, Lamar Jackson. I'm going to lock in the Steelers because of how many players the Ravens are going to be sitting in this one. Mike Tomlin won't be sitting any of his players and knows that with a win, they have a chance to make it into the playoffs.
Yeah, and it's just such a tight AFC right now. Do expect Baltimore to be sitting a lot of guys. I just want to shout out Isaiah Likely last week had a great game. Him and Zay Flowers have really been stepping up in like the absence of Mark Andrews, who was Lamar's favorite weapon. I'm expecting this game to be kind of interesting. Like you said, I expect the Steelers to win. That Najee Harris and Jalen Warren had a franchise high amount of rushing last week. So, expect them to kind of go back to that against the league's best rushing offense in Baltimore. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting one. I like Pittsburgh as well to win.
Yeah, all right, let's keep this moving along. We have the Kansas City Chiefs making their way to LA to take on the Chargers. LA serving this by -3.5, over under here of 35. KC just won the AFC West. LA not in playoff contention. I'm locking in KC. LA's just looked so bad since Justin Herbert's gone down. And regardless of the fact that Patrick Mahomes and other starters will be sitting, I still think that defense and Blaine Gabbert's understanding the offense is enough.
Yeah, I agree. I think that at the end of the day, like you said, Blaine Gabbert kind of has shown flashes in this offense as the backup. So hopefully, he can get it done. Like I agree, 4 straight losses for the Chargers does not bode well. Looks like they are going to just be resetting everything next season. Already fired their coach, like you mentioned. So, just give me the Chiefs.
Yeah, will be a desiring head coach vacancy job, though, and something that we'll be keeping a close eye on as the offseason comes up faster than we would really love it to. But moving this right along, AFC West, another AFC West showdown when the Denver Broncos make their way to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Raiders are favored in this by -2.5, over on here at 38. I'm locking in the Raiders. They're just playing so well, and Antonio Pierce and this team is playing for him to be here, I think, for the future. They're not going to mess this up like they did with Rich Basikia a few years ago, where they didn't sign him despite him having a great winning record towards the end of the year.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just say I would say, maybe on this one I'll have a little fun. Give me Denver. We saw them in a low scoring matchup last week. I think we're gonna look at the same thing this week with the Raiders. But they were able to kind of slip out a win with their defense. Obviously, Jared Stidham versus Aiden O'Connell, not really what we expected at the beginning of this year. However, it's just time for both these teams to kind of look at it like this. Either of them can win against a divisional opponent, but they're both kind of sailing off into the sunset at this point.
Yep, couldn't agree with you more. All right, New York Jets making their way to New England to take on the Patriots. Patriots favor this by -1.5, over under here of 30.5. We think Saleh sticking around. We think Bill's going around. Who you like for this one?
Yeah, we were kind of debating off camera. A lot of people saying, this could be Belichick's last game. Sean saying, absolutely no way. He's being there for the long haul. I think both these coaches, have a good chance of sticking with their franchises next year. Under the circumstances, just kind of a lot of lofty expectations going into the year, kind of have fell short. You can see them both wanting to bounce back there. Give me the Patriots in this one. It's a very low scoring game, only 30.5 over under. I think this is going to wind up being one of those classic Patriots Jets, 10 to 13 games. It goes down to a field goal. So, give me New England for this one.
Yeah, I'll just go opposite of you. I'll go with the Jets. Neither one of these teams are playing for much. Zach Wilson will be sitting, so we're getting Trevor Siemian. But Jets defense is good enough, and at this point, you're playing for pride and for next year. So I like the thought of that. All right, let's move this right along because we have the Philadelphia Eagles making their way to New York to take on the Giants. Eagles favored this by -5.5, over under here of 41.5. Now the Eagles are 1-4 in their last 5 games, and their only win has come against New York in Philadelphia. What are you thinking about this one?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We just saw this game a couple weeks ago. Like you said, I think that the Giants right now, even with Tyrod starting, it's going to be a tough game right now with the way the Philly is just trying to keep their season alive after that tough loss to Arizona last week. Give me AJ Brown for sure for a touchdown in this one. The Giants are going to probably be without Deontay Banks, which is huge in this one. The Giants defense, it does look good. They have an opportunity to make a disruption on Jalen Hurts and this defense, this offense. We've seen it before in the last few weeks. They've, been kind of in a weird spot. But just give me the Eagles on this one. I hate betting against my Giants, but I know the Eagles right now they're playing for something big.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Giants. I feel like to that regard, the Eagles are playing for something big. They're playing for the division title. They have their playoff spot locked. I think the Giants want to play spoiler. We've seen Jalen Hurts struggle to play in the Meadowlands, and I think this is going to be one of those chances where the Giants say, we have nothing to lose here. We're going all out. We're going to open up this playbook entirely. I think they're going to surprise everybody, get the win. Cowboys have a chance to win this division as they are playing in Washington. We'll get to that in a little bit,
Mhm.
but I just think that the Giants want to play spoiler. That's what so many teams like to do this late in the game. But let's see who's moving along to the Cleveland Browns, making their way to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. Cincinnati's favoring this by -7, over under here of 37.5. And you're probably wondering, why is this happening? Joe Flacco is a big reason because that he's not going to be playing in this one. They are going to be going with Jeff Driscoll. They're also going to be sitting a handful of other starters as well. What are your thoughts about this one? I'm going to lock in Cincy.
Yeah, give me Cincy. You've been talking about. You just brought up, just kind of spoiling it for your division mate. Just getting that win. Cincy really has had an up and down season. A lot of injuries to, Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase here and there. So, not the season that they were hoping for after making the Super Bowls a couple of years ago. I will say, Bengals at home, if they are starting their offense, go for Joe Mixon this week. I do think, in a game this favor, they'll be up and they'll be running. And, Cleveland's going to be sitting a majority of those defensive starters who have been stars all year. Give me Cincy, no problem in this. And Jake Browning, give him another week to try out. He could really stick around there as the backup quarterback.
Yeah, you never know. Also, one thing to keep in mind with Cleveland, with a win or a loss, they don't move from that fifth seed. They're a
Yeah.
lock in that for this playoff. So just keep that in mind
Mhm.
for as part of the reason why they're resting some of their key starters. All right, moving this right along with the Minnesota Vikings making their way to Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions are this by -3.5, over on here of 45.5. What a terrible way to start 2024 with that 33-10 blowout. I'm gonna lock in Detroit. I just don't know if the Vikings are. We're in the contention for playoffs. We need so many teams to lose. Even with a win, we're not going to probably make it. So I'm going to lock in Detroit, but I am happy that Nick Mullins is going to be starting because hopefully we'll have some offensive movement this week instead of what we saw last week.
Yeah, obviously, right before we recorded last week, we found out Jaron Hall was starting. Sean was very hyped to get Nick Mullins argued here, and he couldn't because they had started Jaron Hall. Obviously, didn't turn out the way you were looking for. The Lions right now, they're at home. Their fans have been super loyal all year. This is their first big winning season in a while, big playoff run. I think that it's a chance for them to kind of get more reps just for those rookie guys going in. They have so many young players on that team. I think the Vikings right now, they're going to be playing as hard as they can. I do expect a good game from Jefferson, and I know Madison has a lot of incentive this week to have a large game. So we'll see how that goes. But I will say, Detroit, they're gearing up for a big game, and it's looking like they're going to have Matthew Stafford back in the house in the wild card. So that would be a huge deal that weekend.
Yeah, it's definitely looking like it will be the Rams versus the Lions, which is going to be a lot of fun because obviously they're going to host their first playoff game in about 20 odd years, and it will be against their former quarterback in Matthew Stafford. That will be a game that I can't wait to talk about next week. But let's move this right along. So the Los Angeles Rams making their way to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. 49ers are favored in this one -4 over under here 41.5. I'm locking in the 49ers. The Rams are sitting all of their key starters, including Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. Carson Wentz is going to be the guy this week. 49ers, Debo came out and saying that they're not going to be resting anybody for this one. The only one I think we're going to see with a rest designation at the very start of this is going to be CMC because he's dealing with an ankle injury. But Elijah Mitchell has been more than serviceable whenever there's been an injury. So expect the 49ers to run through him, and they'll still put up a ton of points.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is a huge opportunity for all those guys to really get the reps, including Elijah Mitchell. We were kind of saying before, knowing that, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, and Matthew Stafford are all sitting for this game. Puka only needs about 29 yards for the record. He could get a 30-yard catch and not sit the rest of the game. Debo Samuel, on the other hand, kind of saying that they need all hands on deck. And I think that that's true. We saw them lose in the NFC Championship because they had the injuries to the quarterback. They're going to need to take this week to kind of get ahead, get it right, and then they'll have an opportunity to maybe start some backups. That'll be great for their depth going in, getting a look at those guys. But San Francisco -4 has got to be the easiest one for me all week. I don't think the Rams will be able to bring it without Stafford. We've seen that stretch this year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. All right, let's move this right along to our largest spread of the week. So the Dallas Cowboys making the way to Washington to take on the Commanders. Dallas is favored this by -13.5, over under here 45.5. I'm locking in Dallas with a win, and regardless of a win with the Eagles, they will lock the NFC East. So I think that they're definitely going to be gunning for a win this week. They're not going to be resting any of their starters. They're looking to host a playoff game. So I'm going with Dallas. I'm sorry, Washington. I think it's going to be a long off season. Don't know if Ron Rivera will be there for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, I think it's Dallas all the way here. We saw I just got a huge shout out with CeeDee Lamb. What he did last week, he only needed about 3 catches, 180 yards to break some records, and he went off, won a bunch of people fantasy championships. Dallas obviously favored by 13.5, obviously a little bit larger than, the Philly Giants spread at 5.5. So, I'm expecting, Dallas to just crush them. The Washington Commanders give up the most points in the league. They give up the most sacks in the league. Just been a bad year for them. I hope their new owner can get them right next year.
Yeah, let's see if it happens. All right, move this right along to our games of the week. Again, these are the ones with playoff implication. These are the ones that have a little bit more importance to them. The Chicago Bears making their way to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Packers are in this one -3, over under here 44. I'm gonna lock in Green Bay. They just played so well. If you listened last week, Chris Collinsworth was just had to get every single Packers fan hyped to the nonstop comparisons of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers that just seemed endless in that game.
Yeah, he loves repeating himself, that guy. Nobody does it better. But I'll tell you one thing. Jordan Love has more passing yards this year. I've been seeing this stat than any Bears quarterback. And we knew he was kind of on pace for that. But now that he's done it, he's going out there to make a statement this week. He's definitely a player you want to keep an eye on his props. Definitely a guy, if you're somehow still playing week 18, not a bad guy to look at for a stream. Great matchup here. The Packers, like the Seahawks, they need to win. That's the one thing, though. Tiebreakers will
All
all
they gotta
work
do.
themselves out, but they got to win. Give me the Packers, no problem.
Yep, couldn't agree with you more. All right, let's move this right along to Tampa Bay, or not Tampa Bay, to Carolina, as Tampa Bay Buccaneers made their way to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Tampa Bay 7 this by -4.5 over under here of 37.5. Now, yes, this is game of the week because if Tampa Bay wins, they are in. If they lose and the Saints win, they're in. If they lose and the Falcons win, the Falcons are in. So there's a lot here with the NFC South, but I'm gonna lock in Tampa Bay. The Panthers are just so bad, and we just saw their owner throw a drink at a Jaguars fan and get fined $300,000. So things are not going well in this Carolina Panthers organization.
Yeah, and then that's a hefty pile of fines for a guy that has 20 billion in the bank. They were saying that David Tepper should have been penalized a little more, as that is kind of like a guy paying like $1.77 on an average American salary for a fine. That'd be crazy. The one thing here, Tampa, their defense is good. We've been talking up Baker the last couple weeks, Mike Evans. We know that Tampa in the past knows how to play this Panthers team. I'm expecting a big game out of Rachaad White this week. Rachaad White, however you want to call him. I know I've been messing his name up all year, but I'll tell you this. He's a dog. I think that the whole thing with Tampa right now is they just need to go on the road, like I've been saying. If you can go on the road and beat a divisional opponent at the end of the year like this, it's as good as playing, just playoff level atmosphere. So, give me Tampa, no problem.
Yep. All right. Let's keep us moving along to another NFC South showdown when the Atlanta Falcons make their way to New Orleans, take on the Saints. Saints favored this by -3 over under here, 42.5. Both these teams can make the playoffs if either one wins and Tampa Bay losses, as we just said. I'm locking in the Saints, so they got a huge win last week against Tampa Bay on the road. Now they get to come home. They get to play a beaten up Falcons team that is expected to start Taylor Heineke despite his high ankle sprain. But we'll see how that goes because if Desmond Ridder goes out there, I think it's gonna be a huge win for the Saints. It will go far beyond this -3 spread that we're seeing.
Yeah, Desmond Ridder, not having the season that we thought, he is the guy that Sean kind of thought he was. I always thought maybe he could develop into something, but we have seen this year that it's just been a tough year in New Orleans, in Atlanta, and they've been keeping it up. However, New Orleans, they are just the better team. They're at home. The Superdome is a super tough place to play. And we've seen them make these little runs at the end of the season before, whether it's under Sean Payton or Dennis Allen. I agree to go right with them. I think Kamara is going to have a great day against the Falcons. And I think that New Orleans is kind of getting hot at the right time, but they really do need to show that, they're healthy, that they can, kind of win these games, because a lot of people are going to be counting them out if they do make the playoffs.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's move this right along. So we have an AFC South showdown. When the Jacksonville Jaguars made their way to Tennessee to take on the Titans, Jacksonville's favored this one by -5.5 over under here of 39.5. Now you're probably wondering, well, why is this game in here? It's because the Jaguars do not have the AFC South on lock. All right. If they lose this game, they are out of the playoffs. But if they win, they get to host the playoff game and they're in the playoffs. What are your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, my thoughts are, Tennessee, go get him. I think that this is a big King Henry day. I think that, there's a lot of incentive here for the Titans to win. Sean, you mentioned off camera, if somebody doesn't want to lose and just lay down in this league, it's Mike Vrabel. And, I think that, DeAndre Hopkins right now, $1 million if he gets 49 yards, 250 if he gets 7 catches. I could definitely see taking alternate props on him to just get everything there. Expect him to just be on the field the whole game. And, it's an interesting scenario here. There's so many divisional games that are determining so much. And I think Jacksonville, we've seen them struggle in these divisional games against Houston, against Tennessee. We've seen, them kind of collapse. And with Trevor Lawrence playing a little bit off and playing a little injured, that's all the power to Tennessee.
Yep, couldn't agree with you more. I'm going to also lock in Tennessee. I think Vrabel's going to tell these guys, look, we got a chance to ruin our division opponent from winning this division, from making it to the playoffs, and that is incentive enough alone. The money and everything else is just a nice added bonus for some of these players. But I think that this team is going to rally, which is a great segue into our next one when the Houston Texans make their way to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. And there is a lot at stake here for this team. The Texans are favored by -1 and over under here of 47.5. Whoever wins this game, regardless of the Jaguars game, whoever wins this is in. All right. You win and you're in this game for both of these teams. So what are your thoughts going into this one?
Yeah, I mean Indianapolis, I feel like I've been just talking about them every week in different ways. They either love them or hate them. This week, I'm kind of loving them. Houston is favored, but they are kind of trending down. To me, just a lot of injuries that they've been dealing with, trying to recuperate. Not a lot of, it's more only kind of Devin Singletary in the backfield now, which I feel like kind of limits their offense, even though he is better than Damian Pierce. I think that they are right now just trying to run a lot through CJ, and they need to be running, kind of through the fact that, you have this defense that is so young, and they need to stop Gardner Minshew because the offensive line in Indianapolis is going to be a huge difference maker for them this week. The Texans defense is going to have to start by stopping Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss and Michael Pittman, who I think are pretty primed for big games. Indianapolis kind of came out of nowhere at the end of the year this year, and we always see a team like that slip in. I think they're that team this year.
I'm gonna go opposite of you. I'm gonna go with Houston. These two teams saw each other earlier in the year, and the Colts won 31-20. It was mainly because they couldn't stop Richardson on the ground, who had two touchdowns. But CJ Stroud, this is one of his big welcome to the NFL games. He was 30 for 47, 384 yards, and two touchdowns. He just couldn't get a lot going on the ground
Mhm.
for them, but we've seen that drastically change. It's become a much more balanced offense. I think that D'Amico Ryan, I think this team is ready. I think they've done so much to turn it around. If they make the playoffs, if they win this game, D'Amico Ryan is a lock for Coach of the Year. I'll argue with anybody about that, given the season that they've been able to put together. But I like a nice road win for the Texans right now. I think the Colts might be one of those teams to fumble the bag. And you're talking about the Tennessee Titans and players having something to play for. Dalton Schultz, 4 catches, gets $250,000. So there are
Good
players on the
bonus.
Texans team outside of just, making the playoffs will get some incentive. But let's move into our last game and probably the best game of the weekend. It's going to
Oh
be the
yeah.
Sunday night football one to cap off a wonderful and great 2023-2024 season when the Buffalo Bills make their way to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Buffalo's favored this by -3 with an over-under here of 49.5. Now, both of these teams, I believe, are locked in for the playoffs, regardless of a win or a loss. Except, actually, no, I'm sorry. The Bills, if they lose, they could potentially be out of the playoffs. But a win for either one of these teams gives them the AFC East division. So, what are you feeling about this one?
Man, I mean, this is a great game because Miami right now has the best offense in the NFL. And Tyreek Hill, even though he's 248 yards away from Megatron's record, he's going to try to put himself up there in the books. This is going to be really tough though against the seventh best passing defense of the Bills. I think that the Bills defense, this is the time you start stepping up. We've been seeing them become a true playoff team, running and playing through their defense, as well as Josh Allen here or there. This has to be a big game for Stephon Diggs. We've kind of seen him disappear. I think that him and Gabe Davis finally have a good game together this week against Miami. Miami right now, like I said, they're great, but at the end of the day, Buffalo, they need to win this game. If Miami wins, they're going to be a very high seed right now. Buffalo, they're going to need the same. And playing in Buffalo is going to be a huge advantage to them going down the stretch rather than you having to play anybody in Miami.
Yeah, I'm blocking the Bills. They've just been playing so well. They're 6-1 since their loss to the Broncos. Um, it's not what you want to see right now for the Dolphins. They just lost Bradley Chubb to an ACL injury. He's going to be out for the entire playoffs and a good chunk of next year, most likely. Xavier Howard also went down with an injury late in that game. It's just, I think things are trending down for Miami. And what we've seen with them this season is that when the spotlight is on them, when it's the Sunday night football games, when it's the big games, minus the Cowboys, they are not showing up. They lost this team earlier on in the year, 49-20. And I mean, the Bills to me right now are one of the scarier teams in the AFC with how well they've been playing offensively and defensively. I agree with everything you just said.
Yeah. But like
I
you
don't think,
said, with Bradley Chubb, it adds to Jalen Phillips already being gone. You're down your two
yep,
best pass rushers, and that is killer when you got a guy like Josh Allen who can buy time.
exactly. So I think it's going to be the Bills. I think that we're going to see both these teams in the playoffs, but the Bills are going to come out of nowhere, win the AFC East. Um, Yeah, I mean that's a good way to
That's a
cap
great
off the
story.
season, and then hopefully a great start once we kind of figure out the final finishes of where everyone will be, uh,
I know
in the
that's the most
AFC at
exciting
least.
part. Once you see this game end, you see that playoff bracket lock, and it's wild card weekend time.
Because if you're the Dolphins or if you're the Bills, you're essentially playing for the number 2 seed. And if you
Yeah.
lose this game, you drop to 5-6. Like that, all of a sudden you're the away team, and it's
Yeah.
a lot is
And
at stake
you
right
want
now.
that confidence going into the playoffs that you're the division champs as well. That's
Yeah,
huge for them if they were able to knock Miami off like that.
we were talking about off camera, especially if you're Buffalo, you want teams to come play you in Buffalo. If you're
Yeah.
Miami, you're kind of, Miami, that's where I'd want to play because
Yeah,
it's warm.
I'd kill to play a playoff game down there.
Yeah, I don't want to go to Buffalo. So this is an opportunity, and I can't wait. We got a great final week of games coming up. I'm happy that we have a lot of teams in playoff contention. That's all the time that we have here today. And just saying, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. We have a ton of stuff coming out with the playoffs coming up.
Yeah, a lot of playoff content, playoff videos, predictions, our awards. We're going through our brackets. Stay tuned for all that in the coming weeks. It's going to be an awesome playoffs, however this week shapes it out. Always remember to check us out, Just Saying with no G, WJS on Instagram for all the updates on that content, and on YouTube and Spotify. Make sure to check us out on Just Saying Football. Thank you guys for checking us out all season. Appreciate it.
Enjoy.